I thank them. I hold them so dearly in my heart. Especially our presenter today, distinguished Toastmaster Ron Papar. Our presenter this evening is distinguished Toastmaster Ron Papar. Ron has over 25 years of experience as a Toastmaster and has served in many leadership positions in our district, including serving as our second District 84 governor, director these days. So remember that. He believes strongly in giving back to help our members get the most from our program. Speech contests are a key part of our program, and they require fair, impartial, and consistent judging to be successful. Today, Ron will discuss the tools and rules Toastmasters has created to help ensure the best contests at all levels. Please join me in welcome Ron to present Judges Training for Toastmaster Speech Contest. And while Ron is starting his presentation, we'll have all questions at the end. Any questions you want, please put in the chat and we'll keep track of them.
Right. Thank you very much. And, as Judy said, just hold your questions. Chances are I'll try, I may answer it. That's the only reason why. And I do have a lot of material here. I start off with the Toastmasters presentation, but I focus on the actual mechanics of judging too. So let's get started. You all know that every year we have speech contests in Toastmasters, and many things are important in a contest, but you can't have a contest without judges. The contestants would just be speaking. So, oops, come on. There it goes. Okay. As we know, speech contests have three purposes. They provide an opportunity to practice competitive speaking, to help us stretch our speaking skills and take it to another level, to provide interesting educational programs for members and the public to help give us some diversion to what we do in a normal club meeting, and to help attract members of the general public to make them interested in Toastmasters. It's a PR tool. By gosh. And to provide an opportunity to learn by observing the more proficient speakers and to become more proficient ourselves. And surprisingly, to learn that some of our newest members can be some of the most proficient. We've seen that time and time again in speaking contests. As a judge, you have some obligations. You have an obligation to be fair, impartial, and consistent. And that's important because the contestants deserve to have judges that give them an equal chance. Every contestant, no matter how experienced a Toastmaster they are, no matter what their background, no matter what club they're in, no matter how long they've been a Toastmaster, should have an equal chance. They deserve, whether it's their first contest or their 50th, to have an equal chance to win that trophy. We have an obligation to Toastmasters International to be consistent in applying the rules and the process of administering and holding our speech contests. It should be the same. Every speech contest you go to should be run the same way. It shouldn't be this way in this district, this way in this area. It should be a consistent product as defined by Toastmasters International. We have an obligation to the audience to provide an interesting and fair contest. There's nothing worse than at the end, when the winners are announced, everybody in the audience goes, "You've got to be kidding me." Now, it's okay. An audience will never agree 100% on anything. But if everybody in the audience disagrees, maybe there's a problem. We don't want that to happen. And as a judge, you have an obligation to yourself. The way I look at it is you want to like the person that's looking back at you in the mirror. So when you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, you like the person you see, and you're proud of what you've accomplished. Now, judging is different than evaluating. Evaluating is something we're trained to do in Toastmasters. We have ingrained in us. It's not about the speech. It's about the way it's presented. It's not about what the speaker says. It's about how they say it. If you don't like it, that's okay. It's how they give that message. And our job is to adapt our feedback to help them improve, to help them to give a little better presentation the next time and the next time and the next time they speak. Contests are a completely different animal. Contests are a level playing field where the best speaker wins. And you, as a judge, have the job of picking the winner. You're not giving feedback. You're not trying to adapt to the speaker's skill level. You're looking through a single lens at a consistent set of rules and criteria, applying it equally on all the contestants and picking the best speaker today. That's your job as a judge. It's very different than evaluating. You kind of have to flip a switch and then go back when you're evaluating next time to stop judging, because they're two different things. And I'd stop at this point and remind you that judges' decisions are final, but they're also confidential. Judges, as a judge, do not share your decision with anybody after the contest or offer a feedback to a contestant. If afterwards they come to you and say, you know, I didn't win, but I'd really like to know what I could have done better, or why Joe did better than I did, you politely have to decline that and just tell them that it wouldn't be appropriate for you to offer them feedback, that perhaps they could ask someone else who was at the contest. And if they aren't clever enough to realize that Matt means you were a judge, well, they'll figure it out. And sometimes people will get huffy about it and go, oh, well, just be that way. You know, that's them, not you. You're not supposed to share what your decision was. And the reason for that is because no good ever comes of it. If someone's, and the more they pester you, the more likely they are to be a problem. There are people in this world, and even in Toastmasters, who will look for reasons why they didn't win. And it's never them. It must be somebody who was biased or somebody who just wasn't fair. I should have won. No, you just didn't win today. And maybe you weren't the best speaker. Maybe try it again next year. Learn from it. Get feedback from people. But if somebody's pestering you to give them feedback, especially if they know you were a judge, just politely decline, no matter how much they pressure you, because no good will come of it. I've seen people try to acquiesce before, and trust me, it's a slippery slope, and it does not end well. So always keep your decisions confidential. Now, to be a good judge, like I said, you have to be fair, impartial, and consistent, but you also have to be accurate. You have to be accurate at how you rate the contestant speeches and how you keep track of your scores. You have to be fair to everybody equally. This isn't equitable, this is equal. It's a difference. And you have to be equal to everybody with no bias for or against anyone. You have to be trustworthy. Toastmasters International, your club, area, division, district, whomever you're judging for, trusts you to be a judge in this contest and trusts you to be fair and impartial, consistent, and accurate. You should be knowledgeable about the rules of the contest and also about the protocols and the criteria, the judging criteria. And most of all, you have to be a good listener, even more so than if you are an evaluator. You have to be a good listener. You need to be paying attention, looking, listening, and watching that contestant at the exclusion of anything else. Not looking down at your phone, not checking the timing, not seeing what somebody else is saying, ignoring squirrel when it pops in the window. You have to be a good listener. To do that, you have to pay attention. So pay attention. Now, at the same time, there's some barriers to objectivity. We're humans. We're human beings, and human beings aren't perfect. And there are things that naturally cause us not to be totally impartial. There are barriers to us being 100% objective. We are not machines. One thing that's been found to matter a lot is speaking position. The speaker's position, if the person's first speaker, some folks have a tendency to use that as a benchmark and compare every other speaker to that first one. Well, that's not fair to any of the speakers, so you have to guard against doing that. There's a tendency to champion the underdog. Kathy's new. I want her to win. So I'm going to vote for her this time. No, only the best one. There's a halo effect. So you might say, oh, I like Pim. She's so endearing and such a great speaker. Everybody loves listening to her. She's got such a darling accent and such a good, effective speaker. I just know that she's going to win. Win? Only if she's the best. Or it could be the reverse of that. Darn it, Ron speaking again. I just hate listening to him. He is just always so biased. I don't like what he has to say. And he speaks too loud. He's always jumping all over the stage. It doesn't matter whether you like me or not. Today, all that goes out the window. Or the second time around. John's been a contestant every year. And he's been to this level every year. And he's never won. He's always second or third. And somebody always beats him. Don't you think it's about time for him to win? He had to really build up his morale. We're not here to build up morale. We're here to pick the best speaker. And if he's not the best speaker, it doesn't matter if he's done it 50 times. He can try again next year. Disappointing, but that's the reality. One that's a very good example is not the norm. And I give the example of, back in the day, Toastmasters was much more formal, and the speakers would stand at the lectern and move around a little bit, but not really do too much animation. And over the years, they did more and more and more till it became almost like a choreography. And then one year at the World Championship, a man named David Brooks fell down on the stage. And it was part of his speech. And people gasped because you just don't do that. That's not the norm. And you know what? He became the world champion of public speaking that year. So not the norm doesn't mean it's not okay. As long as it's allowed by the rules and meets the other criteria, it could be the new norm. And of course, prejudice and personal preferences need to go out the window. You need to leave those behind. And if you can't, you shouldn't be a judge. I think most experienced Toastmasters are able to do that. No matter what their personal beliefs and values are, they know and respect others, all others, and can treat them equally. So we, of course, have to do that. Now, one of the ways that Toastmasters helps us with the barriers to objectivity is with the ballot. But before I get to the ballot, I want to make one important point. It's as a judge, particularly, you need to know the rules. Know the rules. Prevent misconceptions by knowing the rules. And the rules can be found in the speech contest rulebook. This year's speech contest rulebook, not last year's, the year before, July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. That's showing, right? You can see this year's rulebook. Okay, I just want to make sure it's changing with me. The rulebook changes every year. And I've seen many, many, many times in judges' briefings and other events that an experienced Toastmaster will claim they know the rules and that's how it goes. That's not how it's done. It needs to be done like this. And they're out of date. So I don't care if they've done it 20 times, if they've been a past district director, if they've judged at the International Speech Contest, you feel absolutely confident by holding up this year's rule book and referring to it as the only source of information. This year's rule book. Why this year's rule book and not last year's? Because every year it changes slightly. And if you look on page 4, it'll tell you that there's a little mark here that goes in the left margin. And if you see that, it means that paragraph has changed since last year, just since last year. Well, how often does that happen? Well, let's see. Page 5, well, there's 3 of them. Page 6, well, there's 3 more. You get the idea. Well, there's another one. You get the idea. And as you go through the book, you'll see less and less of them. But every year, the contest rules change slightly. Be aware of that. Read the book. Become familiar with it before the contest. Much of it doesn't apply to the judging. However, sometimes it does. With that, let's get to the judge's guide and ballot. I've got a bigger one here. Now, the judge's guide and ballot also changes every year. So make sure you download the contest package for this year from Toastmasters International. And particularly, one of the things that's changed over the years is the scoring. There was a time when delivery, how you presented the speech, was equally or even more important than your speech content. That's not true anymore. Over the years, that's changed. And content is equally important as all else combined, the speech content. And as you'll see on some of the later slides, within content, speech value is now worth 25 points. That's a quarter of the total is on the speech value. That never used to be true, but that reflects a change in society, if you will, that's driven Toastmasters to change to reflect how people are speaking in the International Speech Contest. The value of the speech is what people want to see. But you'll see that this is this year's. And when I go back to the presentation, you can't really tell here, but it has changed, and you'll see that here in a minute. So a couple of things. When you're using the judge's guide, you can take notes. You can make notes in the margins. You can make notes next to it. Use pluses and minuses. Use the suggested values or use other point values. And what that means is, you see here, for each element, there's excellent, very good, good, and fair. So it gives you some guidelines. Use them consistently. And mark each candidate. Now, something that I do that I'd like to suggest to all of you is one of the ways to avoid comparing everybody to the first speaker or previous speakers is you have to defeat your subconscious. And your subconscious will see out of the corner of your eye the scores that you've written down for the other contestants when you're writing down the scores for the current contestant. And no matter how much you try to hush that voice, it's going to influence your conscience. So how do you get around that? A way I've found, or shown by someone along the way, is that I list the contestants in reverse order. First candidate over here, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. Then, when the first contestant speaks, I score them after their speech. And when I'm done, I fold the paper over. So it's covered by the paper, and I can't see it anymore. And it doesn't just distract my subconscious by being there in my frame of vision. It's a very good technique. It works well for me because I'm a visual learner and I'm easily distracted. Another thing you can do is use negative points instead of positive points. Now you see, again, we'll go back to this. You can see there's 15, 10, 25 maximum points. That gets to be a pretty big number and will add up to 100. Now, depending on how quick you are with addition, that might be a little bit of a challenge, and that's okay. Some folks have come up with a really clever way that instead of doing additive points, they subtract points. They say, well, for speech development, I subtracted 3 points for these items as they spoke. And for effectiveness, 1 point, and for speech value, 10 points off of that, and on down. And then at the end, they've got smaller numbers to add up. And it's much easier and faster to add up those small numbers. If that works better for you, it's a way you can use. But be consistent with what works. Because remember, you've got 1 minute at the end to add up your scores and tally them, to write your scores, to add them up, and to tally them. And while you're suffering through the minute of silence, that seems like forever. When you're a judge, that minute goes by so fast, you want another one most of the time. So do a way that you can do quickly. All right, so let's get on to the judging categories. On the ballot, you'll see that there are 3 sections: content, delivery, and language. And I know that's kind of an eye chart, but these slides are really effective that Toastmasters made. And so I like to use them. So I blew them up a little bit. So content has 3 things: speech development, effectiveness, and value. And you see, these slides have been around for a few years. The point values are different for speech development, effectiveness, and speech value than they are on the current form. Every year that can change. So be sure you're using the current form. Again, we want to be consistent at all levels: club, area, division, district, all the way up through international. So when you're looking at, how many so's is that? 10, 12? When you're looking at speech content, speech development is structure, organization, and supporting material. Was it well organized? Did they give the material in specific points with supporting material for each? Did they make 10 points that you can't remember? Or did they use the rule of 3s or some other technique that helps the audience retain it? These are basic Toastmasters skills. How well was their speech put together? Is it something they threw together at the last minute? Or does it show a care of crafting an excellently structured speech? Was the information well thought out and organized? Was the supporting material effective? How effective was this? Was the audience and you as an audience member, did they achieve their purpose? Did they get their message across to you? Was it interesting? Did you want to listen to the rest of it? Was it well received by the audience? And that's hard to tell online, but in person you can tell. You know, if everybody's dozing off, well, maybe they could have been more effective. But did they accomplish what they set out to do? Then there's the speech value, ideas, logic, original thought. Original thought? You know, was this a valuable method? Was this something that made a difference to you, that meant something to you, that you'd want to listen to, that you needed to listen to? Then we get to delivery. And remember, content is 50% and value is now 25%. Delivery, physical, appearance. As Pim would always say, did they wear a suit? Did they look nice? Did they wear flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt? Well, maybe they're giving a speech about being a surfer and that would be appropriate, but that would be pretty much of a stretch. You know, if they took the time and trouble to look professional, to dress like someone who has a message to give you, it makes a difference. And it should make a difference, especially as you move up the ranks of these speech contests. Was their body language effective? Was it confident? Did they make use of the speaking area? Remember, at the World Championship of Public Speaking, there's over 1,000 people out there in person. If you just stand there at the lecture turn and move back and forth a little bit, you're not taking advantage of that speaking area. Use the speaking area that you have. Maybe it's really, really small. Maybe it's bigger. Use it effectively. Voice, vocal variety can be a very effective tool. And especially in a larger hall, you have to be a little bit louder to be heard, or effectively use a microphone. Were they also able to get really, really quiet for emphasis? Or sometimes just boom out that key point. How much they use that dynamic is something that makes the difference here between a 6 and a 10, or a 7 and a 9 on voice. Likewise, manner. Were they assured? Were they confident? Were they comfortable as a speaker? Or were they shaking and grabbing onto the lectern like it was their very first icebreaker? They need to be comfortable and confident as a speaker to be effective. Last, language. Was it appropriate? What is appropriate? Now, that's a subjective thing. In general, for Toastmasters, particularly at the area level and above, we suggest that it should be PG rated. That's generally a safe way to do it. Now, at the club level, your mileage may vary. I know in the past we have had some X-rated clubs, literally, in our district, and their view of appropriateness was probably very, very different at their speech contest. That's okay, but when they get to the area contest, they need to find a way to make that for a more general adult audience. Was it also appropriate to the speech purpose and to the audience? Did they use good grammar, pronunciation? Spelling counts, so does grammar. So does pronunciation. Yes, you might have an accent. That doesn't have to stop you. You don't need to say ain't and drop your G's, for example. Word selection matters. Don't be too simple, but don't go over everybody's head. You're not defending a PhD thesis. At the same time, you're not talking to first graders. You're talking to an adult audience, and the level of words should paint a colorful and clear mental picture of what you're saying. You do that through word choice and vocabulary that's appropriate to your speech. And all of those things make the difference between an average speech, a good speech, and a great speech, and a winning speech. So a couple of things that I'll go back to. Remember the rule book? One thing I need to make a key point here is there are no additional rules. It's in the rules that you cannot have any additional rules. I've seen in the past where clubs or divisions or even districts have tried to put in their protocols that, well, we're going to add this at the district contest for everything else. No, you can't add rules. You can't have rules that aren't, if it's not in the rule book, it's not a rule. It does not apply. You can't exclude candidates because they won before in anything except the International Speech Contest, and that's only if they're the World Champions of Public Speaking. That is the only exception. So if anybody tries to add rules, and that could be, I saw a chief judge do it once in a contest and had to call them down, them down. It was a he, but I'll say them. You cannot add rules. And as I said, don't share your vote. Don't give feedback to contestants. So I'll open it up for questions with this conclusion. from Toastmasters. It reminds us that the strongest principle of growth lies in human choice. And as the judge, the choice is yours. With that, I will ask our moderator if there are any questions.
So thank you very much, Ron. No questions came in through the chat, so I will ask people to kind of use a raised hand or something to speak. But I do have a question. I was hoping that you would cover it.
Okay.
The prospect of originality and the judge's view and how they are to address that also.
Right. Originality is a requirement, and there's a percentage defined, and I don't have it memorized. I believe it's 70%. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But in the rule book, it defines that X percentage of your speech has to be original material. And if it isn't, if you as a judge or if another contestant recognize material that is not original, they can file a protest. Now, only the judges and only the contestants can file a protest, and they can't do it on somebody else's behalf. It has to be personal knowledge that they have. If I'll get to that, Vicki. Thank you. The protest has to be lodged with the chief judge. The chief judge then has a protocol that's defined in the rule book, basically to allow the contestant to respond to that charge of unoriginality and to respond basically to that charge accusation of originality. And then the judges vote on it. And the majority of the judges prevail. So
Okay,
it's
thank
a process. Yeah.
Thank
And
you for explaining that.
Sure. And that does come up. Actually, you'd be surprised. Not a whole lot, but it's come up more frequently than I would have ever thought over the years.
Okay.
And normally, the chief judge, especially at club or area levels, can often struggle with that. Always refer back to the rule book. It defines it very clearly. Another thing that's defined very clearly is the use of the tiebreaker ballot. And that has also caused a lot of confusion and but it's defined again very clearly in the rule book. I won't go into the details of that. Now, there was a rule added a few years ago that a contestant cannot refer to a previous contestant's speech. Now, professional speakers do that all the time, and contestants used to do that as a matter of course, and especially in humorous speeches, would refer to something else another contestant said. Well, someone decided that that's not fair to the earlier contestants because it's giving the later contestants an edge. Board agreed, and that is a rule. So a contestant cannot refer to a previous contestant's speech, or they can be disqualified. So that is another, and that again is defined in the rule book. So all these, the details of all these are defined in the rule book. So I won't go into too much detail, but these are things that can come up. More a concern for the chief judge, but as a judge, you may be asked to listen to the case presented and to vote on it, because the vote of the judges, again, is what matters here, and it's what makes the decision. So if you ever see the judges get called out, when the ballot counters are out, the judges get called out, you know that there's some kind of a protest going on, and it may be a while.
Okay, actually, that was one of the questions too. So thank you for explaining that. And it would be up to all the judges to actually read the rule book so they can follow that.
And the chief judge ultimately needs to be the most familiar with it and can refer the judges to the applicable part of the rule book and actually read that to them to help them make their decision based on the actual rules.
Okay, Stephanie Bonnie Byrne has a question. Her hand is raised.
Good.
You have to unmute.
I sent it to you on the chat. You didn't get it. You might be able to sum it up better than me, better than I can. Correct grammar.
I am not seeing one coming in from you.
Okay. This is my question.
Okay.
And the international, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. At the international speech contest at the district, and you normally, with all of the criteria that you've given us, select the best speaker.
Right.
But going on to the next level, what do you do if the best speaker is not the best content? And the chances of them playing out well on a world stage or an international stage is not good, because maybe the references that they make is US and no mass appeal.
There is no discretion there. The winner of the contest moves on to the next level.
To the next level, the semi.
Right, which is where the videos of those go in and are judged to get down to the semifinals and then the world championship.
I understand, but as a judge,
ultimately, as a judge, if that can be a consideration, although you have to refer back to the ballot. Ultimately, the ballot is what you have to go by. And, this is, it doesn't specifically say, can this win at the next level?
No, but you're judging a winner.
You're judging a winner based on who was the best speaker today.
Okay.
Can you go to the second page of that, Ron, where it's the Judges Code of Ethics?
Yes.
Okay. Because it does mention, I think, in point 2.
Delivery?
No, it says judges will demonstrate the utmost objectivity by consciously avoiding bias of any kind. That's one thing.
Right.
Yeah, but the judge has to get to that.
Yeah.
They have to get to that point. And to get to that point, they have to consider the content and the delivery. But now there's more weight on the content than before.
Yeah.
That's true. And so therefore, if they're looking at the form,
effectiveness.
Effectiveness and speech
and value.
Right. Those are the things. And,
here it is.
And that's the weighting of it. Now, there was one thing, and I did forget this, so I'm going to jump off for a minute. After the contest, at the end, you, the judge, got 2 minutes after the last speaker, tally up the last contestant, and you put in the first, second, and third place speaker. Not 2 out of 3, all 3. And if you have a tie, you break it.
Break your own tie.
You break your own tie. You can't have a tie on the ballot. It is not valid if you have a tie. There is no tie. You pick a first, second, and third place. Tear the bottom off, sign your ballot, and print your name legibly, so somebody like me, who was never an administrative admin or secretary, can read it. Not the way I sign, like an engineer. So print it legibly and sign it the way you sign. 3 winners, first, second, third, signature, printed name. Tear it off, turn that in, and what do you do with the top part? You
tear it up.
And put it in your pocket or your purse, and you take it away to dispose of elsewhere. Don't throw it in the wastebasket in the corner. I've seen people go through the trash to dig them out. Petty, yes, but you can't control people. So take it home and shred it, please.
Okay, there's another question, and this has to do more with the speaker point of view, but do they have to give the same speech at every level through the district level?
No, they don't have to. They may. They may give the same speech through the district level. In fact, I believe through the semifinal, but they have to have a different speech for the world championship.
Okay.
They used to have a different one at the regional level, World Championship.
They sure do.
Not anymore.
And then as far as the process for the judges to file a protest, what actually happens at that moment?
The judge or contestant that wants to file a protest discreetly follows the chief judge out of the room with the ballot counters, and out of the room approaches the chief judge, explains they have a protest, and the chief judge will run it from there and listen to the protest and administer it.
Okay, very good. And I suppose this brings up a whole other thing. This isn't the judges, but if somebody is eliminated, then how does that affect the ballot counting, right? Does it have any effect on it other than total them up and then ignore
the
that
ballot
total?
counting goes on the same way as it did.
Okay.
If someone's eliminated, then the ballot counters are aware of that, and that person is no longer, even whether if they came in first, second, or third, they would get scratched. The next person, everybody below them would roll up one level.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
Hey, Julie.
Julie.
I have a question. I know that we need 5 judges on club level, and I know that the number of judges will increase as we go above the different levels. So can you say how many judges will be needed on district level or what?
I would refer you to the rule book. Like I said, I don't have it memorized, and I don't want to give you the wrong information, but that is very well defined in the rules. So,
right.
Just refer to the rule book and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question.
I think that the scoring system and the number of judges make the whole process very much with integrity, because yes, we are people and we think differently about the different speeches and we put our own emotions and judgment and whatever. But if we have more judges and the numbers are calculated and the tiebreaker is there, and the process is really fair and very accurate.
And the whole goal of the judge's ballot form is to help eliminate any possible bias. All of that is really considered carefully.
Right.
And it's laid out to help us be impartial and consistent. So if we follow the process, that really helps us to provide fair, impartial, and consistent judging in contests, which is the goal.
Yeah, and I liked that you pointed out that there is no such thing as tie. When I put the scores, I have to make the solid decision who comes first, who comes second, and
That's right. If you've got Joe and Sue both with 90 points, you've got to decide between Joe and Sue which one was just a little bit better.
Right.
And that's what you put down.
Yeah, right. I personally enjoy being a judge. Just for your information, Judy, I'm always ready to support you.
Do you hear that, all you club officers looking for an extra judge? There's a volunteer.
Yeah. I don't want to compete, but I love to judge.
We appreciate you, Judy.
Vicky, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Ron. I wonder if you can just clarify, isn't there a point in the rules, which I'm sure where I believe it has to do with if you are disqualifying a candidate or discussing disqualification for originality, that you bring the contestant in to discuss that before making the decision?
Yes, absolutely. The contestant has the opportunity to respond to the judges as a part of that process. That's part of the protest process, and it's well defined. The person who has had that levied against them, or who is being considered for disqualification, has a chance to respond on their originality, and sometimes that makes a difference. And ultimately, it's up to the judges to decide whether it was original or not. One time, many years ago, a longtime Toastmaster got up at a area contest and gave a very dynamic, powerful speech, which was a letter written by his son who was in the military. And I still remember it well. It was just a fabulous speech, and he did a great job of delivering it. And one of the other contestants lodged a protest on originality. He said, it was great, but he didn't write it. His son did. It was his son's letter. And none of us that were judges had even considered that, but they were absolutely right. And the gentleman had to be disqualified because it was not original content.
Right.
And could you also speak just briefly to the issue of, oh goodness, it just went right out of my brain.
That never happens.
Waited too long. It'll come back to me.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
There was a request to share your slides. I don't know if that's personal product or something you put together.
No, it's the Toastmasters material. Basically, I've added to the Toastmasters training package with the slides of the blown up slides of the ballot form, but it should be in the chat. I guess it isn't. Yeah, let me see if I can add that to the chat. I'll be happy to do that.
And I just remembered. Could you speak briefly to the issue of consideration of a contestant's technical difficulty? Something's going on. At what point do they stop judging, start over, that whole process?
Well, that's only true in hybrid contests or online contests, and that doesn't apply anymore at the area level and up because all of those contests are in person.
There are microphone difficulties, not being able to hear the speaker, that process.
I have seen that happen. If the at the contest master or the chief judge, if a contestant gets out there on the stage and their microphone just doesn't work, or after the first two words dies, they can be given the chance to start over. But if they're 3/4 of the way through their speech and it gets intermittent, they're just going to have to live with it. Things can go wrong. I've seen some really good speeches get sidetracked because of technical difficulty of a lavalier mic or a headset that was intermittent. But the best encouragement is be sure you test it beforehand. Take advantage of the opportunity to try it out before the contest so you're familiar with it and that you don't add to the problem. And if it isn't working properly and you're not comfortable with it, you can ask before you go on, this doesn't seem to be working properly. Can I use the other one? And which results in a slight delay while they give you the one that the current speaker is using when they come off. But if one of the mics isn't working well, you as the contestant can, at your discretion, use the other one if one is acting up. We would hope that we're smart enough not to try to keep in service one that isn't working properly, but I have seen more than once where we did try to struggle through it, and one or more contestants suffered, if you will, because of a less than perfect microphone.
Well, outside of just flat not being able to hear somebody, which you can't judge if you can't hear it, I guess what I'm wondering is, shouldn't judges try to ignore any of those technical speakers or that kind of stuff and listen more to the content in the presentation?
Oh, absolutely.
As far as a judge goes, you need to move forward with that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, absolutely. It certainly is up to the judge. If it's a noise or something, or even feedback or something in the microphone, not to allow that to interfere or influence them or filter that out. Depends on how big a distraction it is. If it's clearly the speaker's unfamiliarity with speaking with a microphone that's causing it, then that isn't something that you would account for. If it's a technical difficulty, you can allow for that. However, it should not really affect how you rank them on the form itself. I'm trying to think where that would fall in. Grammar, pronunciation, not really. Voice, flexibility, and volume. We are presenting using electronics, and that's part of it as well. And if you go and think of it this way: if you go and watch a professional speaker, and they're struggling with the technology and it's not working well, you aren't going to feel like you got your money's worth, and you expect them to be able to do it perfectly. And as much as it's within the speaker's control, they should not be subject to those kind of problems, or they should be able to work through minor difficulties that they might have. My opinion.
I remember a speech contest some years ago where actually the speaker had squeaky shoes, and he was walking across the stage. They were really loud squeak. Everybody could hear the squeak, squeak, squeak as he walked across the stage. And it was really funny for consideration. Should you consider his squeaky shoes or just listen to the speech?
I would consider that. I gave a speech at a club. It wasn't a contest speech. But one thing that I got as feedback was, Ron, your shoes are squeaky. And they were. They weren't squeaky normally, but on that particular floor, they were very, very squeaky. And it was distracting. It was distracting. So, yeah. Okay, we're just about out of time. So is there any last questions that anyone has?
No, I don't see the PowerPoint have been dropped in.
It's PDF. It's a PDF.
Oh, it's a PDF?
Yeah.
I dropped in in as a PDF file.
Maddie did have a question.
I do. I'm brand new to the contest and all of the rules and regulations. Is there a requirement for a judge to be at a certain level with Toastmasters? Can someone who is brand new to Toastmasters come in after they've given maybe icebreaker or speech with a purpose, then come and do a judge at a local level or a district level? Or do they have to have level 1, level 2 done?
There are criteria for that, Maddie. That's a very good question. It varies depending on the level of the speech contest.
Okay.
There's more leeway at the club level because clubs struggle having enough. But if you refer to the rules, it's very clearly defined in the rule book. And I always, rather than try to do it from memory, I always just refer people to the rule book, because if you get in the habit of referring to the rule book, you'll never be wrong and you'll be current every year.
And there's more to be said on that. If you feel like you want to help out another district or another location that's not yours and maybe fill in as a judge or something, be careful that you're also not in the contest, even if it's in a different area.
Right. You can't judge in a speech contest that you're a part of. So,
no matter what other club or area you're in, right?
And you can't be, you can only compete at one area contest for any given speech contest, even if they're in different divisions or districts.
Okay.
Ron, I didn't see your PDF file in the chat.
Did I forget? I forgot to send it. I'm sorry.
Well,
There
that's
we
what
go.
it is.
I hit send. Okay.
Now I have it.
All right.
Okay, Ron, thank you.
All right. I want to thank all of you for attending. And if you do have any questions after the fact, you can reach out to me. Most of you know how to get a hold of me. My email is dtmron@gmail.com. It's real simple to remember, dtmron@gmail.com.